Who's your commander?
Good luck.
Equip.
Move to combat.
Resolves.
Now, before you attack
Does
me,
anyone have an answer?
well played.
Good game.
Hello, welcome back. I'm DJ, and this is the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel, and today we're talking about even more Commander 2018. Today's Commander that we're focusing on is an odd one. It's Yennett Cryptic Sovereign. Yennett Cryptic Sovereign is 2 white, blue, black for a 3/5 legendary Sphinx. Yennett's got flying, vigilance, and menace. And whenever Yennett Cryptic Sovereign attacks, reveal the top card of your library. If that card's converted mana cost is odd, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Otherwise, draw a card. I think the design on this card is amazing. It's a perfect balance of interesting and powerful and perfect for deck brewing. So let's take a look at what Yennett would do in a commander deck. First off, we gotta be looking at that trigger. We need tons of odd cards in our deck so that we can get free value whenever we attack with our commander. And we're probably gonna skew towards the very high converted mana cost. It's nice to draw a card or cheat a 3-drop into play, but I want to cheat 9 drops into play, 11 drops. The 13-drop, I want it into play. And of course, if we build a deck full of 9, 11, and 13 drops, well, we might have a weirdly balanced deck. So we need to make sure that our cards are flexible and that we have a proper balance and we don't go too far in the odd synergies. Of course, we would love to be able to manipulate our top decks, get exactly what we want when we want, rather than just blindly attack with Yennett and hope we get what we need. And finally, Yennett is a Sphinx. A great Sphinx. I love that it's in the Esper colors because there's some amazing Sphinxes in Esper. Unfortunately, they're not all odd converted mana cost. So can Yennett properly lead Sphinxes? We'll find out. But the first thing we want to talk about is the odd power that comes when your commander can let you cast cards for free. If we're talking about odd cards, Void Winnower has to be the first. A 9 mana 11/9, your opponents can't cast spells with even converted mana costs. I think it feels pretty good in this deck, and Ulamog and Emrakul can join Void Winnower, all the odd converted mana cost among the big fatties. There are some more Eldrazi and gigantic creatures, and you can search for them if you'd like. I think find the creatures that really speak to you. And I'm gonna need to mention one. It's Iona, Shield of Emeria. This 9 CMC 7/7 Flying Angel lets you choose a color and say, oh no opponents, no more casting of that. Iona Shield of Emeria is very polarizing. Some people are going to be so excited to include this crazy angel in this deck and shut their friends out of playing Magic, and others might be tempted to leave this video and this commander behind. I say embrace however much evil you want to. I personally am feeling pretty evil, so I'm going to include Iona in my deck list. Okay, this is more than just a big dumb creature deck. I want great spells that let me influence everything around me. I want to play Grave Betrayal and steal my opponent's creatures. I want to take my opponent's cards with Mind's Dilation. I want to take Sepulchral Primordial and pull their creatures from their graveyard and recruit them to my own battlefield, or Diluvian Primordial and take their spells for my own. I love the idea of manipulating this with huge spells, blatant thievery. I'm not just stealing your creatures or your spells, I'm literally taking whatever permanent I want and saying it's mine now. And Grave Betrayal and Sepulchral Primordial is nothing compared to Rise of the Dark Realms, a 9 CMC sorcery that says all of the creatures in the graveyards are mine now. But of course there's another 9 CMC spell that just seems to win games, Expropriate. It's blatant thievery, it's extra turns, it's insane, and it's oddly mana costed. So you can see the awesome power that we have here with these really amazing cards. And by the way, extra turns work really well. Expropriate's going to be amazing because you steal some stuff and you already got a hit in with Yennett anyways. So you're just going to be able to chain hits together with each extra turn you have. In fact, why not play other extra turn spells? Time Warp, Nexus of Fate. I know that's a sensitive subject, guys, but Nexus of Fate's a pretty good card. Temporal Manipulation and Capture of Qingqiao are also 5 CMC extra turn spells. But unfortunately, the only one that's really affordable in this list is Time Warp. All of the others are actually really out of budget. Even Expropriate's like 20 bucks. So how about an extra turn card that costs under $1? Time Sifter, 5 CMC artifact. I love that it's an odd converted mana cost. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, each player removes the top card of his or her library from the game. The player who removed the card with the highest converted mana cost takes an extra turn after this one. What? By the way, if you check out the average converted mana cost of this deck, it's high because we have a lot of crazy high-powered odd cards, and we have ways to manipulate the top of our deck. And so we could theoretically take turn after turn after turn, and by the way, this card might be too good in Commander, because it says at the beginning of each player's upkeep, so when your opponent goes to take a turn, you could theoretically jump in and take a turn. Time Sifter gets crazy. By the way, I mentioned all the high converted mana cost cards in here, so we could punish our opponents with cards like Twilight Prophet, Sorin Grim Nemesis, which will do damage equal to the CMC as we draw cards, or Demon Lord Belzenlock, which can draw us a bunch of cards. But wait a second, these are all even converted mana costs. 4 and 6 and 6. Are we really going to play these in our deck? Well, maybe. You shouldn't feel like you're locked in to just odd converted mana costs. In fact, we should be building our deck with a ton of flexibility. If we are banking on always flipping huge cards with Yennett, then we're building a deck that's set up to fail at the first sign of resistance. So let's talk about some flexibility. And I want to start off the conversation with 2 cards. Mystic Confluence and Brilliant Ultimatum. Mystic Confluence is a great card. We see it played in Commander, I dare say a staple. 3 blue for an instant, you get to choose 3 modes and you can choose them more than once. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 3, return target creature to its owner's hand, draw a card. So, Mystic Confluence can be that great counterspell when you need it, but if you flip it off of Yennett, another counterspell would be useless. But this counterspell, well, lets you draw 3 cards, or put it in your hand and let everyone know, hey, I got a counterspell, don't mess with me. Mystic Confluence is solid. Brilliant Ultimatum is awesome. White, blue, black for a sorcery. Remove the 5 cards of your library from the game. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles, and you may play any number of cards from one of those piles without paying their mana costs. It's an insane factor fiction, and in a deck with so many high CMC cards, this could get tons of value. Unfortunately, it's really not very flexible at all. This is super difficult to cast. It's incredibly high mana cost. You basically are hoping to flip this off of Yennett and then hit exactly what you want off of the Brilliant Ultimatum. So unfortunately, I think your deck will be better if you cut Brilliant Ultimatum from it, although it might be a little bit less awesome. I hope you can see the difference in flexibility and how inflexible Brilliant Ultimatum is, and how best case scenario it is, and how flexible and reliable Mystic Confluence is. We can carry this principle of flexibility through to other parts of our deck. In Garrick's Wake and Plague Wind is what everyone wants to play. It's this huge high value card, but honestly, Do we really need that? What about a card like Tragic Arrogance, which can save your Yennett and your most critical pieces and really punish your opponent? And you don't have to flip it off of your Yennett to be able to cast it in a reasonable time. Or a card like Kindred Dominance. I know it's still a little bit of an expensive board wipe, but you can actually cast a 7 CMC spell. You can choose Sphinx and keep your Yennett alive and basically wipe everything else off the board. Another element of flexibility in this deck is mana ramp. You might think this isn't a ramp deck, this is a I'm cheating huge odd spells into play. But that's what flexibility is. You should probably include enough mana ramp to ramp into your Yennett, and if your Yennett keeps getting killed, be able to ramp into your huge 7, 9, and 11 drops. You're also going to want to be able to protect your huge big creatures and your Yennett, so cards like Reconnaissance, Maze of Ith, Lightning Greaves, Bastion Protector, Whisper Silk Cloak, all of those are at a premium in this type of deck. I just want to preach caution because my first list included all huge drops and Yennett and enablers, and it didn't really have enough flexibility and enough protection and redundancy, so make sure you pay attention to that boring stuff too. Now let's talk about manipulating the top of our deck, because I want to be able to cast some huge spells, and the best way to do that is with cards like Vampiric Tutor, Imperial Seal, Mystical Tutor, Enlightened Tutor. All of these can set up the top of your library, some of them at instant speed. The Yennett trigger can be on the stack and you can be, hey, how about I cast this Vampiric Tutor? How about I get an Expropriate, a Rise of the Dark Realms, exactly what I want, and I will cast it. Amazing. Imperial Seal is way more expensive than all these other cards, and also a sorcery, but it still adds it to the top of your deck. Another card I failed to mention, Conduit of Ruin. 6 mana, lets you set up that Eldrazi right on top of your library, and bam, cast it with your Yennett. Another card that's awkward to play, but is more like a tutor than any sort of cantrip effect, and that's Limdul's Vault. You can read this and see how you figure it out, but you can stack the top of your deck pretty reliably with this crazy card. It's very, very good, just kind of annoying to play. But some simple cantrips can really set up the top of your library. Ponder, Portent, Telling Time, Brainstorm, all of these have different ways of stacking the top of your deck so that you can get exactly what you want. But one of my favorites is just a land, Halimar Depths. Rearrange the top 3, get exactly what you want off of the top. Speaking of top, Sensei's Divining Top. This is reusable, it's not a one-off effect. You can constantly be rearranging the top of your library. And Soothsaying, again, lets you look at the top of your library and put things back in any order. Except, hold on a second. I have to say, we've been fixating too much on just messing with the top of our library. We will not always be attacking with Yennett and setting up that great creature. A lot of the time we're going to be playing these before Yennett even reaches the battlefield, or playing them to try and find the answer we need. And so we need to use these cards both as enablers for Yennett, but also as proper top deck manipulation. So cards like Fetch Lands, which lets you stack the top of your deck and then get rid of them and shuffle your library, is super, super important. Cards like Temple of Deceit that lets you scry. Again, you can set up the top of your library and then get that card out of there, because you're not always going to want the 9-drop on your turn 3. You just want to scry it to the bottom, or you just want to top it down to the bottom and then shuffle your library. All of these ways of manipulating the top of your library are going to give you huge card advantage even before you have your commander on the battlefield. That's why I also like Search for Azcanta. You can manipulate the top of your library and get rid of those cards in your graveyard. Heck, maybe even get them back later with a Rise of the Dark Realms. And finally, we can manipulate the top of our library by literally playing those cards. Future Sight and Magus of the Future are amazing. This is the kind of card draw in blue that I love, because you can put a land on top with Future Sight and literally play the land from the top of your library. You can see exactly what's coming with your Yennett. Just remember, Everything isn't always going to be perfect, but the things that enable your Yennett are also just really good cards, so play them well and your deck will function even without your commander. This is going to be a great deck. But do you want to know what's going to make this deck even better? Some Sphinxes. I want to put in a tiny Sphinx package because the Sphinxes are amazing. Magister Sphinx has always belonged in Sphinx decks. It's an amazing Esper card because it just zaps someone down to 10. And trust me, there are people in this world that deserve to be zapped down to 10 life. Enigma Sphinx is 7 CMC for a 5/4 flyer. It's got Cascade, one of the most fun mechanics in Magic. Whenever this Sphinx dies, you can put it on top of your library, third from the top, maybe allowing you to manipulate it onto the battlefield a little bit later. These Sphinxes are fun and we keep getting better. How about Prognostic Sphinx? Remember I talked about the power of scrying? Well, Prognostic Sphinx can attack with your commander, scry like crazy, has protection, it's exactly what we want. And Sphinx Ambassador is just a mind game with your opponent for a huge beater. It's just fun. And so that's what I like about the Sphinxes, is that they can add a level of fun to this deck. We've also got some card draw on Sphinxes. Sphinx of Athun is a factor fiction, but Unesh is the one that really synergizes with Sphinxes. I wish Unesh was Esper, but it's just going to slot into this deck anyways, even though it's an even converted mana cost. Along with Conundrum Sphinx, because if we can mess with the top of our library, yeah, we can get a lot of value from this Sphinx. So what did I learn about Yennett Cryptic Sovereign? Well, I learned how many amazing odd CMC cards that are out there in Magic. You know what? I think that you should just browse through the cards at your leisure and find whatever odd cards you want to put in this deck and just embrace them and have fun. In fact, I'll leave a link in the description where I show exactly how to search for odd converted mana cost cards, so you can have a look for yourself and have as much fun as I did. But that is not where the deck ends. You can't just have enablers and huge odd spells. You need to make sure that you have some balance in this deck. So don't forget your mana ramp. Don't forget your curve, even though your curve is going to be super spiky and awkward. Just know the type of deck that you're building and make sure that you're not building a deck that's going to have your opening hand full of 9-drops and then you don't do anything and die. Because Yennett has the potential to be super fun, but you have to avoid the traps and build a proper deck so that Yennett can be fun and powerful. If you want to see all of the odd cards I chose for Yennett, click on the link in the description, which takes you to the deck list on tcgplayer.com, because tcgplayer.com sponsors Jumbo Commander. They're amazing. Thank you, tcgplayer.com. Check out that deck list. And also, I want to thank my patrons. Thank you, patrons, so much. Taylor, Timothy, Zachary, you guys are amazing, giving me so much support. And of course, all of my patrons are kind and wonderful, and I want to thank each and every one of you. And of course, I want to thank you, the viewer. Thank you for still listening to me and watching this video right now. I love you all very much, and I'm excited to talk about even more Commander decks. See you very soon. Bye.